Okay, so I was listening to a podcast this week, and it was Pretty Lonesome by Madeline Argy, and I really love that podcast, and I love the way her brain thinks because I just think the way she dissects things is really interesting, and I find joy in it. But she talked about in one episode, she was talking about how there's a difference in the way we function when we say we're spending time doing something versus when we devote our time to something. And she's explaining how she finds so much enjoyment with the act of devoting time, and I have to relate. I think that there's different behavioral mechanisms at play when you say you're devoting your time to something rather than you're spending time doing something. There's like actual enjoyment in that, because in my brain, at least, to like get a baseline, in my brain, when I say spending time, you can spend your time doing many miscellaneous things. You can spend your time doing things you feel like you have to do, and of course those are all necessary. You can even spend your time doing things you love to do. But when I feel like when you're devoting your time to something, that's like people devoting their time to their craft or devoting your time to make an impact on people. Like that feels very inspirational rather than, like oh, I have to spend my time at school because I'm legally obligated to. Like there's power to that, and there's importance and necessity to it. But I think the act of devoting time to things activates different behavioral networks and different circuitries that, if you can tap into, offer a unique flow state and excitement for life. So I just want to talk about that because there is a difference, and I think it's cool to get into the science of it. Okay, so I think the best place to start this conversation is to just talk about how oftentimes, and I know I'm like we've all experienced this, like you have a really busy day, so busy that like you don't even have time to think, barely have time to eat, you're just so busy, and at the end of the day it's like what just happened? Like you can't remember what just happened. You had such a busy day, but it's kind of just like empty at the end of it. There was no real importance to it, and I think that's the differentiator between spending time versus devoting time, is the level of importance you have to it. And that's going to shift from person to person because we all have like unique value sets and unique perspectives that will shift the way we think about things. And that's our personalities, right? Like what I find to be important is different from what the next person finds to be important, from what you find to be important. And it's all very perspective, and it's not like equivalent. Everyone is different, but the level of importance that we place on things ultimately changes the way our brain functions. And so the level of importance that we place on things 100% influences the way our brain functions and the state we are in throughout the day. And so I did some research and looked into the difference in brain states and the way we behave within these two states. And it's quite interesting. The first thing I found was that the default mode network, which is like the brain's autopilot, it's active when your mind is wandering. So like when you're in class and your mind starts wandering, that's 100% your default mode network. It's active even when you spend time on things. So for example, that class thing, like when you're in class, you're spending time in class, but your default mode network, even if you're like half paying attention, is partially active, right? But when you're fully devoted to something, like engaged, fully devoted, your default mode network quiets down. And that's why like studying, and for example, like giving yourself 1 hour of devoted studying time where you're fully engaged is 100% more effective than 3 hours of just spending time kind of lackluster studying when you're not 100% present. And so that's one thing I found. The default mode network often is important for creativity, but it often, when you're spending time on things, is partially active, which is also why we can get really exhausted if you are just like, you could be laying down, but if you can't get your default mode network to like shut off, you can literally get brain burnout. And that's like a whole other thing. Like being able to have time where your brain can shut off, which is hard with social media and the never ending amount of technology we have around us, but getting our brain to calm down is like really, really important, and something that I need to work on as my family yells at me to do. But like the default mode network is 100% like it's like it's responsible for your mind wandering. So if you find yourself like trying to rest, but your mind just starts like going from A to B to C to D to Z, like that's partially your default mode network. And it's interesting because even though you're resting, it does not feel restful, and it leads to burnout. So that's interesting. But that's not the point of what I was talking about. I went totally off track. The default mode network often get us wandering, right? So when you're fully devoted to something, your default mode network shuts off and different active networks engage to keep you focused. And so just the act itself of devoting yourself to something, being fully engaged, shifts your brain activity and circuitry, and you can like see that in studies. So that's really cool. Like the default mode network quieting down allows for devoted time. So that's really cool, and I didn't know that, to be honest. The second thing that I found was that the amygdala and hippocampus play a role in this. And so all you need to know about that is that the amygdala is kind of like your fear and emotional processing center, but it marks moments for your hippocampus, which is the other area of your brain, to store memories. Your hippocampus is like notoriously known for the memory center. And when you have things that you deem to be important, right? Because like I said before, if I think baseball is the most important thing in the world, but my mom like could not care less, she like hates baseball, then her brain is not going to flag that as important material to remember. So but mine would. And so that's how our brains are going to act 100% differently. So like if I'm devoting my time to watching the latest MLB games, I'm going to be remembering all these different innings and whatever they may be. And if I'm sitting next to my mom, she probably would not, because her brain is now acting differently to store these memories. Her amygdala would not tag these moments to be deemed as important, and so therefore they would not stand out to the hippocampus to be like actually things to be properly remembered. Your body stores like memories. Your body stores so many memories, but you can probably remember like really distinctive memories very clearly, and some other ones are kind of hazy, and so that would kind of turn into more of a hazy memory for her. She wouldn't remember these specific innings or like which batter hit a home run. Like she would not know that. But if I really, really found baseball to be important and the MLB to be like the most important thing in the world, then I would like my amygdala would flag those memories and I would remember them in so much more detail, because that's just how my brain is processing, which I think is so cool. Like, let's be so honest. Everyone is different, which means everyone's brains are different, which means we are all going to function differently. So this entire thing of like feeling as though you have to compare yourself to other people, because I had a whole conversation about this the other day, like the act of comparing yourself to someone else is inherently like comparing apples to oranges. Like you cannot, because your brain is entirely different. Like not even like from a biological level, like you have different DNA. No, like from the standpoint of you genuinely have different personalities, okay? So your brain is going to fire differently. Like it's like as simple as that. Like your brain is just going to fire differently. And then you can get into the genetics and even the epigenetics of it, which is like a different rabbit hole to go down. But just from a personality level, like you are seeing that your brain is going to remember things differently. So like if you're studying science, but you like think science is the most stupid thing ever, you're not going to really remember it that well, and you're not going to find value and importance in it. So your brain isn't going to be the best at studying it. But if you find art to be like the most amazing thing in the world, and you value it and you devote your time to it, and you want to devote your time to it, which is also another thing you want. Like when you devote your time to things, you want to devote your time to things, rather than like when you spend your time doing things. A lot of times you spend your time doing things you don't necessarily want to do. But like if you devote your time to art and you think art is the most amazing thing in the world, your brain is going to fire differently in relation to art than it would to science. So like the entire act of comparing people and comparing yourself to others is so wrong and like not even applicable, because you're an entirely different person and your body, brain, everything functions differently. And like if you want to compare someone to someone, just compare yourself to yourself, like to try and get better, but not in a harmful, mean kind of way, just like in a way to evolve and get better. But again, I got off topic. all you need to know is that your brain processes things differently. And isn't that so cool? So that's the second thing I learned. And that honestly kind of ties into the third thing that I learned, which is in relation to anticipatory dopamine, which is different than regular dopamine. I feel like a lot of people know dopamine to be kind of this excitatory neurotransmitter or chemical that's in our brain. And it is. And devoting your time to things releases anticipatory dopamine, which means you get a release of dopamine before even doing the act. So like if you are devoting your time to painting, the act of like planning to paint 2 hours later in the day releases anticipatory dopamine, like you're devoting time for that. And so you are going to get excited just from the thought of planning it, just from the thought that, oh, it's coming down in the future. Whereas spending time doing things often doesn't. And that creates a distinction, like a massive distinction. And I feel like we've all felt this. So let me like break it down in an example to make it clearer, because I feel like I'm just rambling nonsense. I'm going to keep up with the painting example. So if you decide that you want to devote time to painting and you find painting to be like so important and so valuable to you that you want to devote some time to painting. So you block it out in your calendar that tonight you're going to spend 3 hours painting something new. That's amazing. Your brain is going to see that and start releasing dopamine in anticipation for the event. So you're going to be feeling better. You're going to have more dopamine in your system and you're going to be more excited for it. That's the act of devoting, right? Devoting time to something. But on the other hand, right? Like if you have to do your chemistry homework and you block off time to do it, you say, I have to do my chemistry homework, but the language around it is even different. I have to do my chemistry homework versus I get to paint later. Like the language is so clearly different, like in the way that you spend your time, right? You have to do your homework. That doesn't feel like something you really want to do versus I get to do some painting later tonight. That's like devoting your time to something. And so the chemistry homework, even if you plan for it, even if you block out time, you're not going to release anticipatory dopamine because you don't find importance in it and you don't find value in it. So your brain is going to be like, I don't really care for this. And so it'll kind of have you feeling flatlined. Like it's not, there's not going to be that excitement beforehand. And we've all felt it, like studying for finals. Woo, like that's not something I'm excited for. And so that's something neurochemically different between devoting time to things and also spending time. So in your brain, there are tangible differences that happen when you spend your time doing things versus when you devote your time doing things. And ideally, I would love to devote my time to doing things all day, every day, but that's not real life, like we got things to do. But the act of devoting a little bit of time every day to doing something, whether that's like devoting time to yourself and cleaning up your room or going to the gym or painting, I don't know. Maybe you want to devote your time to learning a new craft, whatever it may be, that's oftentimes going to be something that you find to be important and valuable and interesting. And it's important for just like normal human living to have that part of your life. And ideally, like, if you can do it as often as possible, that's really cool. And it activates those circuits again differently. So I think it's really cool. I haven't been able to stop thinking about this concept since I heard it. So I'm really happy that like I could get my thoughts out in one rambling video. And I hope you learned something. I definitely learned a couple things and I had a lot of fun filming this. So yeah, I'll see you next time.